On the afternoon of September 24th, Novorossiysk was attacked by drones and unmanned boats. Media reports indicate that the local port was targeted. The mayor of Novorossiysk stated that the city is currently repelling a USV attack and urged everyone to follow safety precautions. Telegram channels are publishing videos showing an unmanned boat breaking into the Semes Bay. Russian forces are firing at it. Residents report that something hit a house. Local channels also state that several fire crews are heading toward the embankment, and there is damage to apartment buildings and cars.
According to
preliminary information, 2 people are known to have died and 3 others were injured. 5 residential buildings, including apartment complexes, as well as a hotel building, sustained damage. The defense against the attack is ongoing, wrote the governor of Krasnodar Krai, Veniamin Kondratyev, on his Telegram channel. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that between 7 o'clock and 12 o'clock, air defense systems shot down 16 fixed-wing drones over the territories of Belgorod region, the temporarily occupied Crimea, and over the Black Sea area. The morning of September 24th began with an explosion in Bashkortostan as well. One of the largest petrochemical complexes, Gazprom Neftekim Salavat, is on fire in Salavat. This is one of Russia's key centers for oil refining, chemical and fertilizer production. Notably, the facility was targeted very recently, on September 18th. At that time, drones struck a key installation at the plant. Something's not right here. Back then, the head of Bashkortostan, Radi Kabirov, confirmed that it was indeed the petrochemical complex that had been hit. According to him, an oil processing unit was struck.
US President Donald Trump made a statement that Ukraine could restore its 1991 borders. He wrote about this on his social media page. The US president stated that he had familiarized himself with the military and economic situation between Ukraine and Russia and fully understood it.
With time, patience, and financial support from Europe, and especially NATO, restoring the original borders from which this war began is quite a possible option. Why not?
Trump noted that Putin and Russia are facing major economic problems and that now is the time for Ukraine to act.
When people living in Moscow and in all the big cities, towns, and regions across Russia find out what is really happening with this war, about how it is nearly impossible for them to get gasoline because of the long lines that have formed, and about all the other things happening in their war economy, where most of the money is being spent on the war with Ukraine, which has a great strength of spirit and is only growing stronger, then Ukraine will be able to restore its country to its original form.
At a joint press conference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in New York, US President Donald Trump stated,
"The Russian economy is currently in terrible shape. It is falling apart. Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this huge army. It's remarkable."
When asked whether he still trusts Putin, Trump replied that he would let everyone know in a month. After the meeting with the US president, Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated,
"It was a very good meeting today. It was probably the most substantial one."
Zelenskyy also stated that US President Donald Trump understood that Putin had been sharing information with them that was far from the truth. Now the US president trusts the Ukrainian leader more. According to Zelenskyy, President Trump possesses very important information regarding the situation on the front line. Zelenskyy said that Trump agreed with him that Putin will not wait for the war in Ukraine to end. He will try to find weak spots in Europe, in NATO countries. After meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, Donald Trump stated that his relationship with Putin meant nothing. The Russian dictator Vladimir Putin allegedly remains ready to meet with the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy. But without preparation, this would be a PR stunt doomed to fail. This was stated by Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. According to him, Switzerland and Austria are unacceptable as venues for the meeting. Peskov stated that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy can also come to Moscow. The representative of the aggressor country also said that any discussions about European security without Russia are untenable. The press secretary of the Russian dictator disagreed with Trump's statement that Russia is a paper tiger. He said that Russia is not a tiger but a bear, and there is no such thing as a paper bear. Peskov believes that Trump cannot fail to see Putin's openness to the process of resolving Russia's war against Ukraine. He said that the relationship between the leaders of Russia and the US allows them to discuss sensitive issues and convey their main messages to each other. Trump and Putin address each other informally and have a warm attitude toward one another, Peskov concluded. Earlier, at a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, Donald Trump stated that his relationship with Putin meant nothing. Trump published the post about the tiger after meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy on September 23rd. He stated that with NATO's help, Ukraine could restore its original borders and go even further. He called Russia a paper tiger and stated that it has major economic problems.
When people living in Moscow and in all the big cities, towns and regions across Russia find out what is really happening with this war, about how it is almost impossible for them to get gasoline because of the long lines that are forming, and about all the other things happening in their war economy, where most of the money is being spent on the war with Ukraine, which has a great strength of spirit and is only growing stronger, then Ukraine will be able to restore its country to its original form.
Meanwhile, the controversial deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, expressed hope that Trump might still change his position on the so-called Ukrainian crisis, the war of Russia against Ukraine.
Ukraine had no other choice but to develop drones capable of flying 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said this during his speech at the high-level session of the UN General Assembly. The Ukrainian leader stated,
Ukraine does not have large, powerful missiles that dictators love to show off at parades. But we do have drones capable of flying 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. We had no other choice but to build them.
The president emphasized that Ukrainians are a peace-loving people, but they want to live freely in their independent country. That is why we invest in defense, because for many countries there is no other way, the president said.
Even simple drones can fly thousands of kilometers. Even countries with limited resources can now create weapons that are dangerous to their neighbors. Soon, drones will be fighting other drones, and such critically important infrastructure and people will be targeted completely autonomously without human involvement.
Vladimir Putin wants to continue the war against Ukraine, expanding it further. Zelenskyy reminded that not long ago, 19 simple Russian drones violated Polish airspace, and only 4 of them were shot down.
Estonia had to convene a meeting of the UN Security Council for the first time in its history because Russian fighter jets deliberately violated its airspace.
In addition, Moldova is once again defending itself from interference by the aggressor country Russia, Zelenskyy added.
The war has already affected too many people to pretend that it doesn't concern you.
The president of Ukraine called on partner countries to act together to stop the aggressor, saying it is cheaper to stop Putin now than to try to protect every port and ship from terrorists and naval drones. According to the president of Ukraine, more than 40 countries are already part of the coalition, and Ukraine is strengthening its army and launching local weapons production with its partners. Ukraine is also defining its financial commitments to defense in such a way that it can become a security model for any other country.
NATO will not shoot down Russian planes in its airspace unless they attack. This statement was made by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
I don't think anyone has talked about shooting down Russian planes if they are not attacking. I think you've seen how NATO responds to these incursions, as we always do. Namely, when they enter your airspace or your defensive zone, you scramble and intercept them.
According to Rubio, the United States of America is a partner and the most important member of NATO.
I think that yesterday at the United Nations, our new ambassador here, Mike Waltz, made it very clear that we will work with our allies to defend every inch of NATO territory. This commitment remains unchanged.
After Russian MiG-31 aircraft violated Estonian airspace for 12 minutes, a number of NATO member countries declared their readiness to shoot down such intruders. In particular, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said that if a Russian missile or any other object enters NATO airspace, whether intentionally or accidentally, Russia should not complain to the UN if that object is shot down. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron emphasized that London and its NATO allies will confront Russian aircraft in Estonian airspace if necessary. Russian aircraft that violate airspace have already been shot down. For example, in 2015, Turkey shot down a Russian Su-24 aircraft near the Syrian border. Turkish military officials stated that before shooting down the Russian Su-24, they had warned it 10 times about violating their airspace. At the time, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stated that the actions to destroy the combat aircraft that violated Turkish airspace were not directed against any specific country. It was a defense of Turkey's sovereign territory in accordance with the rules.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with the leader of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. They discussed efforts to end the war and cooperation between their countries. Zelenskyy emphasized that the key task now is to achieve a just and lasting peace with reliable security guarantees. Interestingly, the leaders communicated with each other in English so as not to speak Russian. President Zelenskyy expressed his gratitude to Kazakhstan for supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. At the same time, Tokayev stated that Kazakhstan does not see itself as a mediator in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The fact that the presidents refused to speak Russian appears especially symbolic. In Russian Z channels, Tokayev's conversation with Zelenskyy in English was perceived as a stab in the back. And in Kazakhstani online communities, a deepfake appeared using footage from an interview with the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova. In the footage, Zakharova is allegedly commenting on the meetings of Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev on the sidelines of the UN Assembly.
Tokayev and Zelenskyy demonstrated blatant Russophobia. They spoke to each other in English and poorly, by the way, even though both of them know Russian.
It is claimed that a neural network generated mimicry and an audio track imitating Maria Zakharova's voice were overlaid on the real video footage. The Russian Foreign Ministry stated that the video is a fake deliberately thrown into Kazakhstan's digital space. According to Russian diplomats, its goal is to drive a wedge between Russia and Kazakhstan to provoke a strong emotional reaction from the audience. Let us recall that earlier, during a meeting with Tokayev, Putin spoke about Russian-speaking Kazakhstan.
It's practically a Russian-speaking country. Well, you felt it yourselves.
Tokayev's response at that time was telling. He spoke publicly in Kazakh.